Hey everyone, this is the Spoon Dude back with another video. Today we will be looking at how I made my custom Superman figure. I decided to make a Marvel Legends style Superman when I rewatched some of the Fleischer Superman cartoons. I remember growing up with DVDs of this version of Superman and I loved them as a kid and I love them now. I think rewatching the cartoons, a wave of nostalgia just hit me and I was inspired to make my own version of Superman, or really not my own version, but my own figure of the classic Superman that we all know and love. I own just a couple Superman figures, and only one that's in his classic costume, really. It's the DC Icons one, and while it's a decent enough figure, I felt like there's, room for improvement, and I thought it might be fun to try making a Superman figure from scratch using a Marvel Legends body that might be better articulated and better sized for a Superman compared to the Icons one. I thought that the Marvel Legends vintage carded Punisher would make for the perfect Superman base body, as he's quite bulky and his head sculpt very much has that square-jawed Superman look. Luckily, the figure was on sale on Big Bad Toy Store, so I ordered him so I could get to customizing. And side note, while he was still shipping, that's when I decided I might as well make a Batman to go along with the Superman, and then I ended up finishing the Batman first. Anyways, in starting the custom, I took the Punisher figure and used some boiling hot water to disassemble him, taking apart his limbs, separating the knee and elbow joints. I used acetone to strip off the paint that was on the figure, and then I used sandpaper all over the surfaces of the figure, which made the surfaces of the plastic far more rough so that paint could adhere better to it. Like my Batman figure, I heavily sanded down and trimmed the knee and elbow joints to reduce some paint rub. You can check out my video for the Batman if you want more of an explanation about that. I also used my X-Acto blade and sandpaper to take off some plastic on the Punisher figure's shoulders. You'll see that they're no longer as bulky as they used to be, so aesthetically it's not quite as nice. There's some kind of space there. But the upside is that there's now less paint rub in the shoulder area. So anyways, once I was done with all the sanding and prep work, it was time for the actual sculpting. The Punisher head sculpt was great, but he had some very angry looking eyebrows, which is fitting for Punisher, but I thought I might sand them down and shave his forehead a bit so I could re-sculpt his face to be, less intense since he is Superman. I then sculpted the Superman hair complete with his S-spit curl. I was particularly referencing Alex Ross' artwork for the way he does the Superman hairdo. That also matches the Fleischer Superman cartoon kind of hair. I sculpted Superman's shirt collar and then laid down some epoxy clay for the Superman logo. I started first with the emblem shape, and then once that dried, I went back in with more clay to do the actual S logo details. In this way, his logo was all sculpted and raised over his torso, which is just how I like it. I was excited in sculpting the Superman logo because I had previously made a Superman animated series custom a couple years ago, and at that time I also sculpted his logo there. While at the time I thought it was okay, looking at it now it's kind of pretty crappy. So with this new Superman figure, I had the opportunity to kind of improve and get it, more correct. Hopefully you'll agree with me that I definitely improved. For the other details of Superman's costume, I sculpted his belt, underwear, and his boots. I tried sculpting some little wrinkles on his torso and shoulders to make it look like he's wearing, more of a fabric tights as the classic Superman does. So painting this was pretty fun. Like with Batman, I used paint primers. Here I didn't just stick with one, and I decided to use some different colors for the different parts. I used blue primer for his main body, red primer for his boots and underwear, and I sprayed some yellow primer for his belt and logo. I did this not just because primer is supposed to hold better than regular acrylic paint, thus being better to fight paint rub, but also because it would look smoother. This was especially important for the Superman logo, I felt. For some reason, yellow just seems trickier to paint for me, and I really didn't want the logo to have an ugly, chalky yellow. So, I of course used the spray primer for the yellow bits of his logo, and then I just hand painted the red on top. For the red parts, I was being very careful to do thin coats so that it doesn't have that kind of thick or rough texture that sometimes my painting does. And I think it turned out pretty well, and I would say the logo is one of the best parts of this custom. For the blue parts, I didn't just leave it the primer color, and I instead brought out some of the details of the musculature using some dark blue washes and then even some dry brushing here and there. For Superman's head sculpt, I did prime both it and his neck a gray primer, just so everything was the same base color. I painted it with a simple flesh color, and then I painted the lips a slightly different shade of the same kind of flesh color. I carefully painted his eyes, doing the details of the eyelashes, and then his pupils I did with a shiny blue, which was just a mix of a gloss blue and silver. His hair is made with a gloss black that has some subtle blue dry brushing. It's hard to see some of those details on the camera, I know, but trust me, they're there. Finally, we got to Superman's cape. Once again, much like Batman, I got a cheap t-shirt, which I cut into a cape that I hemmed the sides of to avoid fraying. I hemmed the sides using a fabric glue. Superman's cape has always had a very specific look in my opinion. Obviously it does vary between artists over the years, but generally his cape has the same kind of folds or wrinkles where it meets his costume on his collar. I wanted to make sure my Superman had that detail, because if you're to just lay the cape down flat, then it wouldn't look right. Superman's cape needs to have those kind of, folds in it to look like Superman's cape. I managed to do this by ironing in the folds into the cape and then gluing the cape strategically on his shoulders so that it would maintain those folds, and then also glued it in a way so that it looks like the cape is tucked into the suit. The final detail that the cape needed was the yellow S shield on the back, which I achieved using some yellow vinyl that I attached onto the cape. So that's my custom Superman figure. I'm pretty happy with it, and I feel like it's my definitive Superman figure, at least until Medicom comes out with their Mafex Superman. This Superman I think looks great with my Batman custom, which is good news since I made them to be companion pieces in a way. Superman here is noticeably bulkier and a bit taller than Batman, which is how I think it should be. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and comment your thoughts on the figure below. I hope to see you on my next video. Thanks for watching.